You can say what you wanna say, be who you wanna be. Come speak your mind, be you. Get ready for the Nakid Truth. Dr. Kelly bringing it to you right on time. No half stepping. She's bringing you the Nakid Truth.
All right. That is right. We are bringing you the Nakid Truth. And we are very excited today because we have a special guest in the studio who, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, you get information, especially the Nakid Truth, when you need it. And I think it's very timely. I think you're going to find what he does to be very interesting and his perspective to be very enlightening. So without further ado, we want to bring our very special guest in. And Dr. Tom and Gehring, is that it? Did I say it right? No, say it. I want to make sure I get it right.
No, you have it right. It's Tom Gehring, and yes, I have a Juris Doctorate, but we don't refer to ourselves as doctors.
Gehring.
Not your Dr. Watts.
No.
I'm just Tom.
Anytime you have a Juris Doctor, let's not get it twisted.
You know. Pardon me while I yawn for a moment.
Yeah.
You know, whatever.
So we're very excited to have him, and we're going to ask him a lot about his background so that you guys can get a good take on what he does. And he comes from a wealth of experience. He works right now with several organizations that he makes sure that handles their legal matters and helps bring them to a conclusion. He taught at Pepperdine University for years as a professor, and now he's doing some projects that God has placed on his heart that he feels is opportune time to do. And you'll find out a little bit more about him, so let's bring him on and ask him some questions. Okay, so you have this great book that you have out called Settle It and Be Blessed. Now, most people may be listening to that and they're going, settle it and be blessed. Okay, well, everybody likes a good settlement. But some people are like some things, you know, when you think about civil rights matters, you think about some things that are happening in the this day and age, they think, is everything settleable, or are some things, are you supposed to fight? What would you say?
Well, certainly, and this is a special opportunity because I'm in a situation where I can talk about God. Mm-hmm. You know, in my secular world, I don't get to. I have to get into the abstract secular. But certainly in God's economy, everything is settleable.
Okay.
I mean, Jesus in Matthew 5 said it perfectly, and I've now been working with Jesus, Matthew 5, for 31 years. He said, settle matters quickly. There's no qualifications. It's not like he says, well, yeah, but I know some things are not settleable. Jesus said, Matthew 5, settle matters quickly.
And you're talking about, when you use that scripture, when you reference that scripture, you're talking about it could be a legal matter, which was what your expertise is, and it can be a simple argument between a husband and wife.
Absolutely.
The principle still applies.
Well, and in my book, I talk a lot about, you know, so much of settling things is settling all, I say, settle all the it's in your life, because the courthouse is the crossroads of human conflict, and it's usually other it's, in other words, other problems in your life and challenges that are the underlying cause of the dispute. So you got to settle the dispute, and half the time, from my work, you settle the dispute by getting rid of those underlying problems that are causing the problems and the challenges.
And I like how you say that, because, you know, when you think about, you know, what motivates people to file claims, like you said, it's generally some underlying issue that could be aiding and abetting it, and sometimes you don't want to settle for those same reasons.
Correct.
Well, you know, this is emotionally, you damage me and you're going to pay, and you're going to pay when I see the judge hit the gavel and say that you're sentenced to pay me so much money.
Correct.
Okay, so why are those two things intertwined? Why are the it's, the little underlying it's, and the why are they intertwined? Why do they ever meet?
Well, I think that one of the reasons Jesus said, you know, settle matters quickly, and one of the reasons we know not to let, you know, the sun go down on your anger is we have to nip it in the bud. We have to get to it quickly. We have to resolve it fast, because it'll snowball into a divorce, or it'll snowball into a problem with your partner. It'll snowball into all kinds of things. It'll snowball into health problems. I mean, if you decide to eat the extra this or that, and I got to call my buddy Robert Ferguson, it'll snowball into other things. So yes, I mean, you know, Jesus and the Bible, I mean, you you cut to these things quickly and try and resolve them quickly. I mean, literally, if somebody's listening to me now on your radio show, they have something going on in their life that they need to get to quickly and settle it quickly.
Yeah, and that's absolutely true. Okay, so let's take, for instance, we know what's going on in the world now. Supreme Court just issued a decision basically stating that marriage has been redefined as it pertains to the Constitution to include, I think it has some languages, whatever pleasures you in life, but basically includes homosexual relationships. So there was this case where two Christian bakers were asked to create a cake for a gay marriage. So, all the wedding cakes are probably the same, but they were supposed to put instead of the bride and the groom on top of the cake, it was supposed to be two of the same sex. And they didn't want to do it, and they didn't agree to do it because they felt that it was against their Christian beliefs. Right. They end up, and of course you may not know all the facts of the case, and nor do I, but they end up being fined $130,000. Right. So it's a big discussion going around the Christian community if you're a Christian and you own a business, are you going to be subjected to being fined because you don't want to provide these type of, items or amenities? So going back to what you're saying about settle it, in a case like that, is that a good case to settle, even though, you could be setting precedent for thousands of Christian people out there who may deal with the same issue?
Right. The nice thing about what a mediator gets to do in his life or her life, I mean, there's a lot of great mediators out there, is that we have the people in front of us, and we can spend a lot of time seeing where they're coming from and everything. The reason I put a napkin on the cover of my book is I got to the point after 30 years of mediation of thinking that there wasn't anything I couldn't settle on the back of a standard issue cafeteria grade white paper napkin.
Wow.
Why? Because if you hear them out enough, you understand where they're coming from, and you can settle it. And that's why I think I told you before the show, I love Mark 12, I think it's 31, love your neighbor as yourself, because in my personal relationship with Christ, I'm trying to get to that one-on-one level of who's in front of me and showing them love and giving and everything. Now, I don't know how that would have developed, that case with the cake and whatever, if it was in front of me, but I do know several things from my own life, and as all my friends know, my work at the Dream Center, I often have a gay person in front of me, or a gay couple, or whatever.
Right.
And at that point, when I'm in talking to God about, Lord, what do you want me to do, and things like that, he's always saying something like, show them love, show them me, talk about me if it seems right, or whatever. And I have a feeling if I had a bakery and whatever, and I was baking cakes, and I went and talked to Jesus, he might have said, that's okay. But as long as you show them love, as long as you talk about me, he might have said, or something like that. So
plant the seed.
That might have.
Plant the seed.
I mean, it comes out with my work at the Dream Center, my charitable work. So I don't know if that's how that would have developed. On the other hand, let's say I'm sitting there and I realize that this couple could get their cake baked at 1,000 other places.
Here we go. Okay, that's real.
And it's clear that they just singled this bakery out because they thought they'd get into a tussle. Then I'd be against that gay couple. I'd be against them. I'd say, you're not here for the good reason, even the secular good reason,
yes,
as opposed to the godly reason. And I'd be against them. I'd say, look, why don't we work out a situation where you go to a different bakery, let's say, and heck, maybe even this bakery will pay for it. Who cares? Because it's not the money. But it's I'm a Christian, for example. I imagine I love all my Jewish friends and my rabbi friends, but they would, if I went to their Jewish temple and say, hey, I want to get married here, they'd say, well, why are you coming here? Go to your church or go to a different church, and I would respect that. Right. I wouldn't try and make a case out of it. So it's incredibly solvable is the bottom line.
So, okay, so when you say that if they're trying to make a case, so let's say they are trying to make a case, and we know that there are going to be people who are trying to make a case out of things, would your recommendations to sell and sell it quick still be applicable?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, both sides You know what the sad part about that case, and I admit it, it wasn't before me, so I don't know all the little nuances. And I think the hardest part is we do live in a society that likes to instigate fights, and it's really, really frustrating because a mediator like me, and I know a lot of great mediators that could have resolved it if they were willing to. If you want to pick a fight, though, and you're trying to set a precedent and things like that, then yes, it's always difficult. Like I said, I can see that is a perfect situation with the cake where I could have easily been on the baker side and easily been on the gay couple side.
Depending on the circumstances.
If the gay couple, for example, let's say this was the best bakery in town and, they did make the cake and whatever, I admit I'd be asking the Christians, why can't we, work with them and resolve this? And so, it depends.
And, I thought about you baking the cake. Let's say you bake the cake. The cake is one thing, but the actual little couple on the top is something that anybody could place on there. You could buy that on your own and put it on there. Correct. So it had nothing to do with the cake. Right. So you have to get into, like you said, the intents of the parties. And I guess what I'm asking you, are there ever any cases that can't be settled?
Frankly, I haven't seen one.
Really?
Oh yeah, easy.
Okay.
But I'm saying something that I don't know if you'd mind me mention his name. I think of my buddy Dennis Torres and some of my other really great mediator buddies. I don't think they haven't either. Why? Because first of all, cases are settlable. It's important to always remember that they are settlable.
And that's if both parties want to.
Well,
right?
That's an interesting point because I talk a lot in my book about how a lot of times I only represent one side.
Right.
So I'm focused on getting them in the mode where they're willing to resolve it. I often say, and I say in my book, I've said to people a long time, I've looked at them just like I'm looking at you, Dr. Watts, and I say, look, you do not deserve to win it until you've done everything to settle it.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so we got to talk about that.
Right. So let's get started on the things you can do to settle it. Like, let's say, again, going back to the cake, I look at the couple, let's say, that own the bakery. I said, come on, let's start thinking in terms of get away from the law and the whatever. Let's start thinking about ways to compromise and how can you show the face of Christ by reaching out. Maybe you want to bake the best cake that's ever been baked in a way to show Christ. And this, if this couple is like some of the gay couples I know in my life, I think of one of my lawyer buddies and his partner that's a school teacher. I mean, this is a seriously wonderful couple. I mean, what they give to the community, their love, they've been together for 15 some odd years. And I mean, this is a wonderful, wonderful couple. I just know in my own relationship with Christ, again, I'm just thinking me personally and my relationship with Christ, it would be okay to, in essence, do my little tiny piece of okaying that marriage. Nobody's asking me if I'm okaying it or not, but I know I would because, first of all, I love them with the love of Christ. Second, I don't know, I see the love. Am I really here to stamp out their love?
Right.
But I would like that one thing.
No, and I understand that. Go ahead.
And I respect, how do I say this right? I like this about myself. I'm still a basic Christian. So if, let's say, my pastor, Tommy or Matthew Barnett, corrected me, I'd listen hard to that. Or my friend T.D. Jakes or somebody. If they corrected me, I'd listen real hard to what they're saying.
This is just basically how you feel at this point in time.
Well, I'm a trial lawyer. My trade is I'm a trial lawyer by trade. It's sort of like I'm a plumber or I'm a house painter or something like that. If a gay couple wanted me to build their house, yeah, I would build their house. I'd try to do it with the love of Christ and the best house you can imagine and things like that. I really wouldn't be standing on the sidewalk going, well, I'm not going to build that house for them. I think they're gay or they might be gay. I don't know. But I would even take your thoughts on that. Am I being a bad Christian or something?
No, I mean, I understand your perspective. And if it's, and like you said, you love the people, but you hate the sin. So it's difficult to make those choices because I guess you don't want to do anything where you feed the negative aspects of what you don't believe in. But at the same time, you don't want to curtail them seeing the relationship that you have with Christ. So it's almost probably like a balance beam walk.
And I want to comment on that phrase because, if I may, because I so respect you and your background and intelligence. It's not so much I don't want to put words in your mouth. Love the whatever and hate the sin.
Love the person, hate the sin.
Because, I'm called to, in my walk of 31 years with Christ, I'm called to love the person.
Correct.
Right? And I've never been comfortable with that other part of hate the sin. Why? Because I know in the Bible, and applies to me really a lot.
Okay.
No matter how bright, I'm so intelligent and smart, but I'm always trying not to lean on my own understanding.
True.
And I don't want to, I feel uncomfortable at those times when I might be rushing to determine if it might be sin. First of all, I don't know what people do in their bedroom. And so, for all I know, they're a celibate such and such couple, and however. And you and I have both seen in heterosexual relationships, and it's not good.
True.
We cannot throw the first stone.
No, I mean it's the fornication, it's the adultery, all of it's
the
sin.
cheating,
Yeah,
it's
all
the
sin.
whatever, it's the multiple partners, and what is it okay because it's heterosexual?
No,
I don't think
absolutely not. Absolutely not. And we don't, at the Nakid Truth, we don't believe that. We believe that sin is sin. So you're absolutely right. And those are such complex issues. And I guess when we talk about those things in the way we're talking about them in terms of the case and stuff, like you said, the important thing is that neither side is trying to impinge on the other's ability to choose. Because that's important. Even choose to settle. You know what I mean? Those are, you can't, because if you're forcing me to do something, you're probably forcing me not to be able to settle. Because you want to set precedent.
Correct.
You want all churches to be made to marry you. You want all businesses to be made to service you. Right. So then you are keeping me from being able to settle.
Correct.
Because people, I mean, have you ran across cases where they were truly settlable, but or you were able to settle them, but people refused to because they wanted to prove a point?
Well, yes. I mean, clearly there are plenty of times in big cases where you have to go to 3 or 4 mediations before it will settle. And in a secular sense, that's where you get to use all your other talents to say, really, are you going to spend another $200,000 litigating this? Do you really want to do this? And the nice part about being a trial lawyer with 36 years experience is you can look somebody in the face and go, listen, you seem like a great person, but you will lose this case. You will lose it.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
I can
Right.
cite
so
you the cases.
that's how you kind of use it, so they'll know that if
Right.
you lose it, you're going to pay the other person's attorney's fees, and so then that kind of gets them thinking in the direction you want them to. Right.
See, I think basically, God is, again, I can talk about God in this setting, which is wonderful, frankly,
Yes,
but I think
absolutely.
God wants us to settle the cases because, and this is a very important, after 31 years, I really realized this. It's in Genesis 13, and just to summarize it, God wants you. If somebody's listening right now, they have something to settle in their life. The reason God wants you to settle that thing, whatever it is, personal problem, legal, whatever, is because He wants to bless you. Okay? In other words, there's something in your
He's
life
setting
that
you
He
up for a
wants
blessing.
to bless you.
Yes.
And after you do all the stuff to try and settle it and try and settle it and try and settle it, let's say it doesn't, and you go to a trial or whatever, then, and only then, and only then,
favor kicks in for you.
He wants you at that point to win it. And why does He want you to win it? I'm telling you, after 31 years, I know why. He wants you to win it, not because He wants you to win it. He wants you to win it because He wants to protect you, period.
Lovely. Lovely. So basically, because you're humble and because you were willing to settle, then the favor of God comes, the favor of God, which is a protection, His form of protection, covers you to be able to then win it and not lose as a result of your
Just read
ability to be
Genesis
obedient.
13 and the story of Abraham and Lot and see how the Lord, once Abraham settled that dispute with Lot, the Lord swooped in and blessed Abraham.
So that's the one where Abraham and Lot had the opportunity to get a piece of land.
They were in dispute, and it's clear that Abraham, the uncle, reached out to Lot,
should have had
the
the
nephew.
priority
He should have had
on the
the
land.
priority. Exactly.
Okay.
He should have said, "Hey, this is the way it's going to be."
I'm getting
Right.
it, and you getting that.
But
Lot
Abraham
got
reached
greedy
out.
and said he thought he was picking the Beverly Hills of the two lands.
Well said.
And Abraham thought he was getting South Central.
Right.
And when it all, well,
Ain't nothing wrong with South Central.
Wait a second.
It's an urban example.
South Central's a good place
you
to
know,
be.
this is I love about the Bible. You can make it urban, give an urban example. People understand. So basically, Abraham thought he was getting South Central, but ended up he got Beverly Hills, and Lot got South Central, and all the issues with it, the people,
And even
everything.
better, because Abraham, of course, as you know, like 6 verses later, ends up with everything.
Look at that.
He ends up with everything, and Lot goes and camps next to those little cities we all know about, Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yes.
What an idiot for seeking out. And it says in the Bible, I love this, because always remember this point. If somebody's listening, always remember this point. When you're sitting there and you, quote, choose for yourself, unquote, then you got to really stop and think. You're probably outside of the Lord's blessing. If you're sitting there going, because that's what Lot did. It says in the Bible that Lot chose for himself. Not good. Not good. You've got to stop and think about, wait a second, you know, what about this other person in my life? What can I do to bless that other person, etc. Be careful.
Oh, I love it. So you get, yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking about relationships. When you get selfish and when you get one-dimensional and you don't consider other people before you,
Right.
you may be on the wrong road.
Absolutely.
Right? Okay.
Absolutely.
And I want to bring in our resident expert who's written several books and been in several reality shows. He's a man with a plan. You'll love him. Hassani Pettiford, are you on the line?
I'm here. How are you?
Great, great. And you know we have Tom Gehring in the attorney Tom Gehring in the
Not
studio.
Dr. Tom Gehring.
Okay, I changed because I wanted to, I didn't want you to get all excited. But anyway, you need to, I mean, we've had a great conversation, and I know you have some questions, but before, I think Anthony has a question.
Yes. So, based on what you're saying, it sounds like, especially in the situation with Abraham and Lot, Abraham said, Lot, you take what you want and I'll take whatever's left. So if I'm a Christian and I'm thinking that way, in particular, I had a friend, he unfortunately got a divorce. It was inevitable. And he said to his ex-wife, he said, I'm just going to, whatever you want, do it. I'll sign the paperwork, no problem. So he signed that. She comes down years later. He has to move to another state for a job situation. They have several kids together. He can't go. He can't see the kids. Money situation comes up. It's all this. He's ended up paying for college, and she's not helping. And so, in that situation, was he right to just give in? Because he basically said, "Whatever you want, I'll sign it," instead of saying, "This doesn't sound fair to me. This doesn't sound equal." He didn't fight for himself in a sense. So,
Anthony, several things.
Okay, yes,
Number
I'm
one for absolutely, positively, a Christian value such as to reach out and settle it quickly is never a reach out and give in. There's just always forget that. That's number one.
Okay.
Number two, I close my book with a chapter that says, sometimes I can't remember the chapter titles, but the theme is so clear. The fight of your life is the fight for your life. So what do I mean by that? What I mean by that, and I'll pull my own quote because I've lived by this quote from Romans: God's gifts and God's call are under full warranty, never canceled, never rescinded. What that means is the fight of your life is a fight for your life. Is that God wants you to settle it, but he also wants you to be a good steward of the gifts he's given to you. Let's say, this gentleman's called to be a great lawyer, a great doctor, a musician, a basketball player. I don't care. Right. Giving in is not part of the equation. Basically God's saying, look, settle it. Take the active course of what's best to resolve this. You be the reach out person. I mean, Abraham didn't, in Genesis 13, didn't give in. He said, hey, look ahead, look up ahead there. If you want to go to the right, I'll go to the left. If you want to go to the left, I'll go to the right. That's not giving in. Okay. He's basically saying he came up with a simple plan, gave Lot the choice, who then chose for himself, big mistake. But I think your friend, no, you don't give in. You basically say, okay, let's start the process going.
Okay.
Maybe it's like Abraham. Look, do you want this over here, this portion? I've had a lot of cases, Anthony, where I said, look, here's the estate. It's worth, this amount of money, or this or that or that. If we broke it all in half, what if, this person takes this, or maybe you can even have this. You know what's interesting, Anthony? I've done that for years and years and years in settlements, meaning here's the estate, 2 houses, 3 this, or da-da-da, blah, blah, and tried my best to splice it in half. I can assure you for every mediation, every single one, where we gave the other side the choice and they took the choice, my person was blessed and the other one kind of wasn't. And in some case really wasn't. I've had medical practices. I think the one I talked about in my book was a 5-office medical practice where the other person said, okay, I'll take the 3 medical offices, and my doctor kept 2. Those medical offices blossomed and bloomed, and the other ones kind of slowly faded away and went out of business. So there's something powerful about God wanting to bless the person that reaches out and keeps reaching out to try and resolve something and settle. These, I often say, and I truly believe this is gravity at work. In other words, God created gravity and the wind and whatever. So even in a secular context, if I don't mention God, I can talk about these principles. Look, let's divide it in half, and let's even give them the choice as to which side to take. I know my person's going to be blessed. I know it. I just know it. And the other person, unfortunately, might not be so blessed. So, all I can say is, your friend, never, never, never give in. That's not what we're called to do as Christians. That's not what we're called to do as selling. In fact, giving in is not fighting for your life, and God has gifts for you.
So you in Anthony's in his stand and what he's asking, so you're basically saying, Tom, that the person should use wisdom in terms of how he negotiates the deal. Meaning, when Anthony said he just gave up everything, you're saying, well, I don't know about giving up everything, right, but you should concede to some things that work for both parties.
All of us are called to be good stewards. I believe Abraham was, in essence, blessed by God to say, look, here's a way to resolve this. The Bible says they were having a dispute, and their herdsmen were having a dispute, right, where to graze their sheep and all of that kind of stuff. And I think he made a very reasonable offer. And Lot just jumped at it and chose for himself. So all of us are definitely called to make a very reasonable offer and get the discussions going. We're called to do that. We're called to be a good steward of our lives because God's calling us. I love Matthew 25 when I get to talk about people about doubling their talents, which could be money or whatever. Why aren't we called, if you have 2 talents within a certain period of time, to double them to 4? Or if you have 1, to double them to 2? We're not called to bury this. I say, and I mean it with all my heart, if you are giving in, read Matthew 25, sometimes after 4 trials, but the parable of the talents, the person that's giving in, if that person were sitting right here, I'd say, look, read the parable of the talents. You're the one that's burying your talent, digging a hole and sticking your talent in there, and that's not what you're called to do.
Have you had a hard time convincing clients? You're sold out to this, but as a client who may not be a Christian or may not believe like you believe, how do you convince your client to say, this is actually going to work out? You give up those 3 businesses, you keep the 2, and this is actually going to work out better for you. How do you sell that?
I've never had that problem.
Wow.
I'm not sure why, except for 2 reasons. Every morning when I get up, I talk about it in my book. I call it my God's to-do list, GTDL. And I say, Lord, bring me the clients you want me to help out and represent. And so maybe I'm blessed in that. I've never had a hard time. First of all, similarly, my job, even if it's, let's say, do you want to go to the right or go to the left or something like that, my job is also show why it's reasonable. This is not cavalier stuff, if you know what I mean. This is not like it's just some sort of simple formulaic. No, you do have your job of saying, this is why. If I were talking to you, Anthony, look, I really want you to be reasonable, Anthony, and here's an approach I think is really, really smart. I thought it through for you. That's my job. I'm your lawyer. Most of the time, except my pro bono work, you're paying me. But even if it's pro bono, you're paying me. You're always paying me. Why? Because I learn as much from you as you might learn from me. All my pro bono work's a feedback to me. I get blessed by that. So my point is that believe me, I'm supposed to deliver the message to you with wisdom and all my experience. I never put that on hold. I'm blessed too. My gifts are under full warranty. God has given me a lot of gifts. I spent a lot of time on the crossroads of human conflict. Frankly, I've lived there. I mean, for 36 years. I decided, I talk about in my book, to be a lawyer when I was 12 years old. I mean, I never sat around going, gee, I think I'll do such and such. And I only wrote this book because I felt like God kept banging me over the head to write it. I say in my book, God comes to me with a 2x4. I know the still small voice, but with me it's a little bit 2x4.
Well, the small still voice was there, and then all of a sudden he's like, you knock him over the head.
Right.
So we get this thing over with.
Did I answer that, Anthony?
I appreciate that.
And I like that answer, because I think another thing what people don't realize too with the legal when in the legal community is that you, as you said, as the attorney, you come with a certain amount of wisdom and then a certain amount of influence, because you know how to create how the settlement's going to look.
Correct.
If you don't settle, this is what we're going to be dealing with. If you settle, this is what you'll get. And people, when it comes down to dollars and cents or verdicts or being in jail, not being in jail, I mean, these things have to be thought about, and they're easier to be absorbed than just saying, well, why don't you humble yourself and just take this?
Right.
When you break it down, this is why when you humble yourself, you'll save yourself so much in it. But Hassani, I know you have a question. So what do you have for Tom?
Hassani, how you doing, man?
Oh, did we lose him?
No, he's still here.
Okay, Hassani?
I think he's
getting off of mute.
He's driving, probably
Okay.
got himself
Well,
muted.
Hassani, when you come back on, Tom is ready to talk to you.
I'll answer anything you want, Hassani.
Yeah. Okay, so Charity, do you have a question?
I'm just trying to soak in. I mean,
It's just such
everything-
good. It's such a good information.
Especially like the settle it thing. Sometimes we have so many things that can linger on that hinder us from moving forward, and because we just don't settle it, we stay in this rut, and we ask ourselves, what's wrong? I don't understand why I'm in this position. I don't understand why things aren't working out. But you haven't even taken care of the things you need to in order to move forward. So
Charity,
You're
can I
doing-
speak in your life real quick?
yes.
Miss Charity, because and this is a compliment, you seem like a wonderful young lady, and I'm so blessed to be able to talk to schools and to the younger people. And I look at them, and after all this life I've had of dealing with leaders and congressmen and senators and everybody, I get to talk to somebody, and I always say something like this when I get like my hour speech. I say, look, Charity, you want to be valedictorian in this school? First of all, I want you to be, because we need you. The world needs you. So the number one way, like if you're president of a big company, and I think of the female presidents that I so highly respect, and the senators and congressmen and whatever, is they got known for being the person that they could go to for resolution. In other words, there's a dispute in the company or a dispute among your fellow students, and it got around that they could go to Charity and say, hey, Charity, look, this group is fighting with this group and whatever. I mean, do you have some ideas or something like that? And it got out, and suddenly they're going to you, and suddenly you don't have to wonder why a year from now you're valedictorian, or you're at your job and suddenly you got the promotion, or suddenly they're thinking about you as president because you showed leadership in resolution. That's a really big deal, because anybody will say it, from the jokes from Woody Allen to the big kings and presidents, is that the person that resolves disputes and conflicts and brings people together is the one we want to lead us.
I love that. And that's so true. It reminds me of something that Mike Murdoch said. I don't know if you ever listen to Mike Murdoch, but he has this saying that, your gift to the world is where is what you can solve. If you're not solving in other words, what you have the desire to solve is really where God's going to use you. So if you have this desire, like for you, Robert's in the studio, you have this desire to help people in the area of health. You want to solve their weight problem issue. You want to solve their illness and their disease problem by the way that they eat and combine foods. That's where your prosperity lies, because God's giving you something to solve. For Tom, it's solving, ministry disputes or organizational disputes and getting people to come to the middle. For Charity, it could be young adults and bridging generational gaps. For Anthony, it could be be, resolving issues that men have that they can't, that they don't seem to grasp around. For me, it could be, all of the above, just helping facilitate the information so people can solve these things. That's where your prosperity is, because like you said, God is a God of resolution. He's a God of peace. And so anybody that has a part of that and has a niche of that, he'll fund it.
Well, when you
Can I embellish on that?
Sure.
And give Miss Charity one more thought?
Sure.
Miss Charity, please remember this the rest of your life,
Miss
because
Charity.
we're looking forward to you being president, or
Yes, absolutely.
might already be.
Well, she's making her way up.
I'm hoping she runs for
Director is what
Congress and
she's
gets rolling here. It's interesting because, again, after all these years of helping people settle things and then solving them, always remember, Miss Charity, that there's a big difference, but there's a good difference between settling something quickly and solving it. So what do I mean by that? So always remember this, and I'll come back and explain briefly, that we are called to settle matters quickly, not solve matters quickly. So what I mean by that is that you'll find when you resolve a lot of conflicts, you're trying to stay within Matthew 5 with Jesus, to settle it quickly in the mechanics of what needs to be done now, to settle it quickly, and the solving will come later. In other words, later you'll understand why the dispute began, and later you'll be able to reflect back. And in the Bible, and I know Jesus is in his different words, without getting into a lot of verses and whatever, you're called to settle it quickly, and the solving will come later. And I promise you the solving does. One way I can prove it to you is very simple. If you ask my friend Dennis or my friend Bill and Kurt or myself, of all the cases you've settled over all of these years, how many times has someone come back and go, oh, Tom, I wish I hadn't have settled that? None. Like none. Like, how's that possible? Why?
Right.
And the one that did the most to reach out and settle it is the one that was always blessed.
That's great. Hassani's back on the line. Hassani, we were wanting to take up any of your questions, so you have Tom Gehring at your backing. And go ahead.
First of all, let me just say I've been enjoying everything that I've been hearing thus far. I'm not sure if you kind of talked about this before I got on the line, but I work with a lot of couples, so I'm always trying to share with them the power of marital negotiating, negotiating your way through a problem and coming to some type of conclusion that's win-win. But in a situation where, you're settling something and you're dealing with a difficult partner or a difficult person, how do you still have the power of agreement or the principle of agreement where you both can come out on top and not feel like you're losing in the midst of the settle?
Well, Hassani, I can tell you one key to that, which is, best I can tell, always the key. And, it's funny because we lawyers, and Irving Younger, a great trial lawyer, once said that all trials are nothing more than a complicated way of reaching a decision. That's it. You can talk justice all day long, you can say this or that, but really all trials are a complicated way of reaching a decision. Well, to answer your question, Hassani, I can tell you one word, that all settlements come down to one word, and one word only, and that is the word sacrifice. So what do I mean by that? In my world of resolving conflicts between married couples and people or even partnerships, the one that sacrifices nothing is the one that learns and discerns nothing. So we live in this world where if one of the spouses doesn't want to sacrifice anything and whatever, there's that spouse is going to have a lot of problems. One, they're not going to be blessed, and number two, they're going to be back into a dispute later. Something else is going to go wrong. So what happens, Hassani, in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of marital mediations is you're inviting each spouse to sacrifice a little bit more because they'll learn and discern more. One of the problems I always have is one of the spouses always says, well, the other person cheated on me or something like that, and I did nothing wrong. You still have to talk them into, in essence, sacrificing. Sacrifice is always a part of it. Again, in the Christian perspective, you have to give. You absolutely have to give every time. So every mediation I've ever had with a married couple, You're basically inviting them to sacrifice more, to learn and discern as to how this developed. And by the way, what's interesting about all these opportunities I've had is when they start to sacrifice a little bit more, we call it almost a recapture concept. Sometimes the couple comes together again. They realize that they hadn't sacrificed enough and they rebuild their marriage.
And so that, yeah, and I guess Hassani's saying that's his goal, is to rebuild marriages. So is there something in those marital mediations that you were able to get a very obstinate marital partner to become less obstinate? And I guess in your situation it's probably money, so that always helps people become less obstinate. But when you're talking about just feelings, raw feelings, how do you persuade maybe a client, if you have the more difficult client, to come your way?
I was talking to my colleagues before coming on that, a lot of times we lawyers are dealing with, and the mediators are dealing with what we call, self-correcting scenarios. And so you're trying to say, you're trying to tell them that what you're fighting over, let's say, is something that'll self-correct. And I was telling my colleagues before I gave one of the cases everybody knows I've been working on, where one of the spouses moved the kids away, 100 miles, and my client was going to fight to get the kids back and all that kind of stuff, and it was going to be a couple $100,000 in attorney's fees. But we worked with the judge and allowed the kids to stay up there, and then the wife had to come back and forth and on, and it self-corrected within 3 or 4 months. In other words, she got what she wanted, and she didn't want it.
Because it was too much.
Because it was too much.
The obligation.
And most of the time, in marriages, you're dealing with things that will self-correct.
Ooh, that's good.
In a lot of ways. So and we lawyers and mediators know that going in. I know that going in my practice. That the thing they're fighting for, like I'm entitled to, I'm a 100% winner on this. Under the agreement, they couldn't take their kids 100 miles away and this and that. I am going to win this. And I said, yeah, but you're going to spend $200,000
to prove a point.
To prove a point, and you're going to have to spend $100,000 on me and $100,000 on her lawyer because you're paying her lawyer's attorney's fees, and you might lose. Why? Because you did some wishy-washy things that led her to believe that she could take the kids up there, because she was tending to her ailing father, and you sort of said that was okay, and that's what she's going to argue at trial. So you could very easily lose it. And I'm telling you, within months of driving back and forth so that they could have joint custody, she moved right back to San Diego.
Look at that.
It's self-correcting.
I like the self-correcting. I like that.
It happens all the time.
And it really does. If people, like you said,
Right.
when you're humble and you just stay in a position of love, and God has a way of working things out for you, is what.
He absolutely. I have a chapter in my book that God has gone out in front of you. Throughout the Bible, it's constantly talking about how God will go out before you.
Yes.
And will also be your rear guard, by the way.
Yes.
So he's out in front of you, and he's your rear guard too. So please, in all of these marriages, Hassani and stuff, I'm just looking for ways to realize what's self-correctable, which I'm telling you, that seems to be at least half of the issues right there. And I'm also looking for people to sacrifice. That's why I loved Anthony's point earlier, because he made a great point. It never means giving up, giving in, or whatever. It always means bringing your wisdom, and so we try to stick with
gifts.
it. Yeah, absolutely.
Protecting your gifts. Okay, now I see that you have this 5-minute rule. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What is that?
Oh, I love my 5-minute rule. But believe me, God gets credit for everything.
I love how you come up with these. They're easily, palatable.
I have so many wonderful clients that call me up. My buddy Mark called me recently and said, "You saved me thanks to the 5-minute rule." He called me. I talk about it in the book. He called me like 3 or 4 years ago and said, "Look, somebody just approached me. He wants me to do this and that with respect to my hospital and stuff like that. And should I do it?" And then I said, "Mark, don't do it. Period. Just don't do it." And he said, "Tom, that's good enough for me." Click.
And he did it.
He did not do it.
Oh, he didn't do it. Okay.
Every other hospital that did it eventually got sued by the government, and it became, over time, the LA patient dumping case. And it was bad. In other words, what's the 5-minute rule all about? I would summarize it as follows. When I get to teach at Pepperdine, I love to talk about inflection points and things like that. And I talk about things like everybody from on the good side, like the Bill Gates of the world, and on the bad side, the Bernie Madoff side of the world. There comes a point, it's very interesting if you study all these people, that Bernie Madoff's life can be summarized in the under 5-minute decision to not invest that first person's chunk of money. That those mistakes we make in under 5 minutes. I think of all my marital stuff, talking to Hassani, for example, where that husband in under 5 minutes made the decision to have a drink with his secretary. I mean, I get tired of divorces where that husband was crazy enough on the way out of the office to accept her invite or somebody else's invite, a female's invite, for a supposedly innocuous little drink or something like that.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
Under 5 minutes.
Wow. This is incredible.
Watch those little moments. Watch those little moments. We know, the Bible talks a lot about, take every thought captive. That's because a thought is like a second, like 1 second. It should be really the 1 second rule. Really, when you think about it. I mean, so in my world, if I can get them to slow down, wait, don't do that. At least call me. Because I'm either a brother in Christ or a friend, and I can say no, yes, maybe, or whatever. Because all the experience and everything else, I'm sure Anthony, if a lot of his friends call and say, hey, Anthony, I'm thinking about having a drink with my secretary. What do you think? The odds of Anthony giving a quick, good answer are really high, like really high.
Right.
If you're
Don't
not a
do
friend,
it.
you might say, well, your wife is getting a little blah, blah, blah. What the heck?
Oh, no, how about this?
Right.
Does she have a friend? We both can go for a
Under 5 minutes. Believe me, in my world of lawyering and all of that, you realize how many million-dollar cases, multi-million-dollar cases were messed up in a under 5 minutes decision. Martha Stewart's a famous one. She was flying south, and books have been written about the mistake she made to do some insider trading in a conversation while she was flying south in a jet or something. In under 5 minutes. It's like 2 minutes. I talk about this when I get the lecture. I think it was a 2-minute, 35-second conversation where she was, in essence, talked into doing an insider trading thing that got her convicted, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Under 5 minutes. Boom, boom, boom. Hey, and half of that conversation was stuff like, hey, Charity, how you doing? Hey, you're doing good today, and how's your mother, or whatever, whatever. Oh, by the way, you should sell that stock because I've heard that it's going to get hit because A, B, and C, insider trading. And you say, okay, Tom, go ahead and sell it. Boom, hit. And that's it. You just broke the law, and she just sold that company, which used to be a multi-billion-dollar. She did get millions for it, but it used to be a multi-billion-dollar brand, that Martha Stewart brand. All those mistakes in under 5 minutes.
Wow, that is incredible.
So are you saying the 5-minute rule is a way of kind of reflecting and thinking and making a sound decision without doing anything too quickly that may not wind up working in your favor?
Yes, because we, especially if it's a business decision or a relationship decision, I think if I could summarize the way the devil is so effective, he's very effective in putting something into your mind right away before your spirit. Because Dr. Watts is sitting to my left here, for example, and I know that she's got two things. One, her spirit with a small s, and she's filled with the Holy Spirit with a capital S. Yes. So what the devil would really like to do is slam her mind with something to do before she talks. She hooks up her spirit with the Holy Spirit and gets some feedback as to what she should really do. And so you got to be, those quick decisions are disastrous. And by the way, go ahead, Hassani.
I think that is such a phenomenal tool, because what I find is that so many people are drenched in emotion, and they're driven by highly intensified emotions where logic and reason is not a part of their decision-making process. And to your point, they wind up in all types of situations. I mean, there's a lot of people who are in prison today that snapped, that were so caught up in emotion that did not use logic and sound thinking, and now their entire lives are altered because of a quick decision. I see that in relationships all the time. So I even like the fact that you said, you know what, pick up the phone, call a lifeline, get sound advice from somebody.
Right.
And I think that if we were to make that a principle in our lives, I think that our lives would be so much more effective and successful in terms of what it is that we're doing. I see how that could work in relationships all day long.
Well, it's interesting because every once in a while I get to give a speech that I call it "Make the Call" is the name of the speech, and I mean literally I'm hoping that people are listening right now, and I can promise you if you have a body of, I know you have a body of listeners, but my point is I would guess that probably 3/4 of them should make a call. Well, I don't know who it's to, but it could be to a good friend like Anthony, who will not lead you astray. If you say, hey, Anthony, I'm thinking of doing this or that. Or Charity at her young age, hey, I'm thinking about blah, blah, blah with my boyfriend. I mean, or something like that. Or how about the call to say, like our friend, come on, what's our friend who wrote the book? On the radio. Anyway, who finally felt called to call his father, and which led to an 8-hour discussion, and he wrote a book about it. Come on, Tom, what's that wonderful talk radio show host that the African American?
Tavis Smiley.
No, keep going. Oh, doesn't matter. Who?
Steve Harvey?
No, not Steve.
Oh, I'm mad at myself.
Tom Joyner.
Tom Joyner?
No, I keep getting mad. He was on Salem for a while. I'm so mad at myself.
Larry Elders?
Thank you, Larry Elder.
I
Larry
hit
Elder.
it.
Thank
Hey!
you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I love his book.
That's it for you to come out your mouth.
I'm
Raquel.
so thankful.
It was hard.
Well, I'm telling you, what he decided to make the call. Call your parent that you think so wronged you, or your child, or this or that. At the Dream Center, we have 700 people living on campus. I'm telling you, everybody I talk to has to make the call. Well, my wife will hate me because I did this. Make the call. Call your wife and say, hey, I'm now in a program, etc. Make the call. How about the kid that make the call? Make the call. If somebody's listening right now, I believe that literally 75% of the listeners need to make a call. It's that simple.
Wow. And you're talking about family disputes. Any dispute
Right.
that you have with somebody, be the peacemaker, be
Right.
the one that God can
Right.
give the favor to, extend the favor to, and you got to get beyond your self-esteem and all the.
Right.
And when I say self-esteem, meaning the pride and all
Right.
the issues that would keep you from doing that.
Correct.
I love it.
Absolutely.
You're
Make
just
the call.
a Christian rock star. You are.
No, I'm not. Hey, God, all glory to you know who. All glory to God.
Yes, we give in this program. We give him all glory. So, okay. So then, let me ask you. There's the. We're gonna. Let me do. I think. We're gonna do this. The problem of evil. What is that?
Right. Whew. I talk about. I have to talk about it because there is a problem of evil. In our world, I think I estimate in the book that 5% of the cases have an evil element. And by that I mean the person that simply is evil. I'm a Christian. I believe in evil. And you can only
Exists.
well, and you can only fight evil with love. I mean, Jesus said that in my book. I have the various verses and the quotes, but let's talk about the practical side of that. The practical side, at the crossroads of human conflict, is that there are plenty of times in our life that the sacrifice is a big sacrifice to resolve it, because it is time to get out of that vortex of evil. There are plenty of times when if somebody looked from the sidelines and said, wow, you really compromised way too much, and it might look like that. But there are times when evil really is pretty serious, and you try to, let's say, overwhelm it with God's love. And I've never seen God not back you up on that. And you have to go to an extra dose of God's love and an extra dose of sacrifice, et cetera, et cetera. And please go there. Why? Because the fight of your life is the fight for your life. I often say this, and it's so true. I can promise anybody listening, I can promise you, for someone who spent his whole life, my whole life, at the crossroads of human conflict, my whole life, courts or lecturing or whatever, that you cannot pursue your passion in the middle of your conflict.
Jesus.
You cannot.
It almost halts it. What does it do? What does it do to your passion?
Well,
Say that
again,
one more time.
Yeah,
Say-
I need
say
you
that-
to repeat that.
say
Yeah,
that
one
one
more
more
time.
time.
that was
'Cause
good, Tom.
yeah, please.
That was the quotable. For sure.
you cannot pursue your passion in the middle of your conflict. So let me explain how that works out at the crossroads of human conflict. Let's say you're the devil, because I believe in evil. And if you don't believe in evil, let's talk. But if you're the devil, all you really got to do is get somebody to be in conflict and then stay in conflict. I mean, you're cool. I mean, if you're C.S. Lewis writing the screw tape letters and et cetera, et cetera. And by the way, if you haven't read that book, just read it.
What's the name of the book?
The Screw Tape Letters by C.S. Lewis.
Okay.
Just the most phenomenal book. If you're a young person out there, this is a book written in the 40s by C.S. Lewis. Remember, C.S. Lewis, for those that don't know, that's the Chronicles of Narnia
Right.
and all
Right.
these
I read that
wonderful
one.
books. Everybody doesn't know just how important this person is, but what evil is more than anything, when you're at the crossroads of human conflict, the best evil, if I can put it that way, it's like the best bad thing, is the kind that would look at, let's say, an Anthony or Wonderful Charity and say, you know what, this girl is going to be the president of this company, but you know what, if I get her in a conflict with her husband or somebody, all I have to really do to ruin your life, Charity, is just to keep you in that conflict. I mean, even if you're kind of balancing it, okay, you're still watering down your passion. You're still spending that mental energy. Look, if I can get a hold of part of your mind, even if it's an hour a day, or even if while you're trying to write your first novel or second novel, if I can get into your head and go, but why did he do that to me? Or why did mom or something like, hey, that's what the crossroads of human conflict look like when you're seeing evil. Somebody, some it has gotten you into that conflict, and they want to stamp out your passion. Anthony, that you look just crazy creative to me, and Dr. Watts, how do we stamp out your passion for life? Get you in a conflict and just keep you there.
Yes.
Even if, and you know what, and when, even if you're winning a little bit, all the better. Let's get her thinking, she's winning this, and just suck up your time.
Mm-hmm.
That's evil in action. That's the manifest benefit of evil, is to just get you in there and keep you there. If I can keep you there as the devil, if the devil's sitting there going, I'm going to keep her, then you're going to keep the person from pursuing their passion, the thing that will help the world, that'll reach out to people, especially like the people in this room. You help a lot of people. Why do I have to constantly, the secular world, I get it, but even in the Christian world, why do pastors come to me and for 10 years we've been fighting this? Oh, please. We can settle this today, period. Like today, like now,
Wow.
like frankly, in an hour or so. This is not complicated. Let's get this done. And don't tell me you're right. That's not the point. I mean, Jesus isn't saying, well, because you're right, you don't have to settle it. That's not what Matthew 5 says.
I love it.
He says, Jesus is saying, reach out and settle it quickly. That means without delay and soon, now. And by the way, going all the way back to Anthony, it never ever, never means hastily. Hasty means two things, and you're getting to hasty, which is wrong. We know the proverb, haste makes waste, and it's hasty if two things are happening. One, it's superficial, and you just feel it, like it feels superficial. And two, if it's fearful. When you're settling matters quickly,
This is deep.
there
Okay.
should be no fear involved.
Yes.
Because Jesus
Yes.
wouldn't send you down the Matthew 5 settle it quickly path if you got fear involved. No, that's not of God. Then there's something hasty going on that's like, I'm going to get rid of this quick, and that's no, that's not of God. God never wants you to do something like that hastily.
Because he wants it to last. He wants it to have an impact.
Correct. And he never wants you to do something in fear. You know that.
Yes,
You
yes,
guys, you know it better than I do. You've been under the best of all best pastors. God doesn't want us to be fearful, right? You know that.
Amen.
Wow. Okay. You know what? We could have another hour, another couple shows with you. I'm sure we could, have callers who want to chime in. But I do want to just go over just a little bit, kind of your background. So you graduated from Pepperdine. That's where you got your Juris Doctorate.
I got my Juris Doctorate, and I'm proud to be 61. So
Oh my goodness, you look great.
Not in a bad, proud way, but I mean, I'm not one of those guys that wants to hide his age or something like that.
Well, I mean, all these years because you have 35 years of experience, and so that says something from a professional standpoint, because you can make,
Right.
you can, of
Right.
course, inject wisdom.
I'm 61 years old. I graduated from Pepperdine in 1979, and yes, and I decided to be a lawyer at 12 years old. So all I'm really doing is following through with God's plan for my life.
And then, what did you practice in particular? Civil? Did you do family law? Did you do employment? What did you actually do?
I wanted to be, and from day one I wanted to be a trial lawyer.
Okay.
The trial lawyer's life deals mostly with the civil code, the code of civil procedure, and the evidence code, which basically means that people in my little world of trying cases are, and I apologize for this in advance, we're a bit of a sassy group.
Okay.
And
we like that.
We're a bit of a cocky group, and we pretty much think we can try any dispute on the planet. Because ultimately it comes down to the evidence code and things like that. So I think I've tried just about every case out there, certainly litigated about every type of case. So I started out immediately being in court with two great lawyers, Don Briggs and Greg Young, and that goes way back to 1979-80. I clerked for these guys starting in college, so you're talking all the way back to 1976.
Lovely.
Time
So
period.
you've had and then you taught at Pepperdine.
Taught at
and
Pepperdine.
You taught for 15 years
And
there.
yeah, I was an adjunct professor of law for somewhere around 17 years, and now I just get to go back and lecture once in a while.
Wonderful. Okay, and so now, if we have tons of listeners listening to you, and they be saying, "I need to talk to him. I need to consult with him." How would they find you, and what's the best contact point?
Well, maybe Tom at tomgehring.com, Tom at tomgehring.com. It's I admit I say this all the time. How do I politely say this? That I don't do this for business, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
I don't do this for
Yes.
clients. It's not. I have no.
You're giving
purpose in that.
information, giving wisdom.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't publish a book as a marketing tool. In fact, at my age, I really have this strong feeling more and more as time goes on that God will suddenly bring something to me and say, I really want you to handle this case. I've got a great roster of cases right now where friends have asked me to help out, and I live in a world where the friend runs a university or a hospital system,
Right.
or
Right.
big ministries,
Big organizations,
And, I've got
yeah.
some big ministries, and I'm helping them out, and they're doing everything they can to settle it. I tell them exactly what I'm saying to you, that we don't deserve to win it unless we've done everything to settle it.
I love that. And so the book is called Settle It and Be Blessed. Settle It and Be Blessed. You want to get it now. Can they get this at Barnes & Noble's?
Amazon's
Okay.
the best because
Amazon.
it's always there.
And it's a great read. And everything that Tom talked about is in here, but it's in here and summarized and with examples and just a nice, easy read to help you settle anything. So check out his book. And we appreciate you for coming on the show with us. We've had a wonderful time.
Yes,
Very
definitely.
enlightening. Wouldn't you say, Hassani? Very enlightening. And you can reach him at tomgehring.com. And don't forget, it is not your abilities that reveal your true strengths. It's your choices. Good night.
You can say what you wanna say, be